Hello, welcome to Loremaster's Lair. I'm your Loremaster, here today for another walk across the world of Galarian. Something special today. We are examining a whole continent. And no, it's not Tian. Stuff like that will have to wait until much closer to fall. Instead, we'll be examining a place we have twice visited in Adventure Paths. The Crown of the World. Quick recap on some of the continents since it's been a while. Of the several continents across the world of Galarian, the Crown of the World is located the farthest north, centered around the planet's northern pole. It is directly connected to two other continents, Avastan and Tian, which past and now once again present has allowed for limited trade between the two continents. Limited because the path across the Crown of the World is not exactly the easiest. But before proceeding to the north, some warnings are in order. After all, if the real world has taught me anything, is that most people do not know the dangers of snow as well as they do in my home state. First, some normal afflictions. Most simply, the tundra is as haunted by mirages as the desert is. So you might want to double check everything you think you see. Howl of the night is a deep-seated fear that comes about after days without sun, causing one to become fearful of all animals, even those not normally a threat. And let's not forget bone chill, better known as hypothermia, which affects one who spends too long in severe cold without means of producing heat. By addition, at the North Pole rests a nameless tower, and from its base continues to flow a blue liquid known as black frost, a potent poison which does cold and acid damage. And for those who get close to the tower, their tissues begin transforming into this liquid, slowly weakening from the waste disease known as urgia. But let's take this moment to talk about another natural phenomenon in the region, which we will designate as today's first side tangent, the part of the show which never goes away. This week we will be starting with the phenomenon known as midnight sun, as well as polar day, polar twilight, and polar night, all four at once. Either way, in the summer months, in Arctic regions, the sun never truly sets, only dipping down to the horizon. This is referred to as the midnight sun. And at the height of summer, and at the farthest points north, there can be times the sun continues to stay high, leading to polar days, days of it being unmistakably day. Conversely, during the winter months, there are times when the sun only rises to the horizon, and potentially several days it does not rise at all, referred to as polar twilight and polar night. This makes the time of year even more important when traveling the poles than it is exploring other places in the world. When it comes to inhabitants of the frozen north, starting with humans, we have the Iwataki, the nomadic human people who travel across the north. Well, not all are nomadic, but we will get there. Outside of that, we actually have relatively few creatures. We have some elves, some dwarfs, but no other creatures qualify as common, most avoiding the frigid cold at all costs. But one more group we need to talk about, which I feel deserves to be designated as side tangent 2. The Sullen Car. It's actually a pretty important name, considering recent events, but a quick rundown. The Sullen Car are people who long ago made a pact with the now forgotten deity to seal away something which they have forgotten, which overall is kind of the entire point. The bond is marked as tattoos across their body, allowing them some limited ability over cold. The Songcar are rare creatures, to the point it is suspected the Songcar Arnamoran is the only remaining of his kind, and he is willing to teach those trustworthy the power needed to continue his people's vigil into the future. Most of what we'll be dealing with this week is geography. So let's go through this, starting with the waters of the region. 4 of the world's seas touch the Arctic Circle: the Steaming Sea and the Shining Sea on the Avastan side, and the Songhill Sea and the Ivory Sea around on the Tian side. There are also 4 gulfs which form around these seas. The Gulf of Corky, which has islands which extend from the Wall of Heaven. The Corpo Gulf is modest, connecting where the Stained Peaks stop and the Rimthirst Mountains begin. The Gulf of Scomador is the largest, and is used by orphans, especially when they sail to the large ice sheets known as Icefang Bay. There are also 2 glacial shelves which reach out into the oceans: Thermal's Shield on the Songhill and Steaming side, and Tarshan Yucatan for the Shining and Ivory side. A lot of tongue twister this week, but either way, I believe this is the perfect time to actually talk about one of those seas. So let's look at Side Tangent 3, the Shining Sea. This sea gets its name due to its connection with the auras of the crown of the world which dance over it. This Arctic Sea is dangerous, both having unpredictable currents which make it hard to navigate, and being cold enough to freeze anyone unlucky enough to fall in after 2 minutes. In terms of creatures of the depths, the only ones who live here are small groups of tritons and sea hagecovens. More of note are the plankton some cultists try to interpret the movement of, polar whales, and special will-o-wisps known as wisps of the deep. That said, those along the shores risk their lives in worship of the Empyreal Lord Pelura, deity of the Aurora. That said, these are not the only waterways of the north. The Tawaska River is the largest one on the Avastan side, and creates the bogs known as the Heslan Marshes. Another is the Magneus River, carrying uprooted plants and ash from the Hellrung Mountains. The Espinal River is boiling from its origins in the steaming pits of Gelt, a large area of natural hot springs in the north, and therefore the river can cut canyons through the ice as it flows. Sea Salt Lake is the last of what was once an inland sea, now nothing more but shallow saltwater. Easthead River is a drainage route from the high ice to the sea. Lake Boreum is the largest lake on the Tian Shay side, and drains from the Niran River. Finally, the Moragani River drains water from the Wall of Heaven. Now moving on to landmarks across the crown of the world, starting back on the Avastan side, with the mountain range which separates the 2 continents, the Rimthirst Mountains. A step further north, and we find ourselves among the Garjuk Hills, a rocky patch known for veins of silver and copper. And east of that are the Hills of the Mournful Calling, places where haunts and those just as miserable patrol the land. Connected to the White Fang Bay, we have another famed mountain range, the Alaska Ridge. And on the other side is Cape Umholtz, sailed by various Ulpins, and covered in the volcanic Hellrung Mountains. Following the path of Arganhay, the trade route between the two continents. We first go through the Comas Gap, through various mountains, then to the Alabaster Pass, home of various ice griffins. Closing in on the other side, we have the White Woods of Molokon, home of various trolls and giants. And finally, we have the Almud Zerd, path through the Wall of Heaven. And on to the Wall of Heaven, which extends beyond the continent and has enough matter to where we should make it today's final side tangent. The Wall of Heaven is a chain of mountains almost completely covering the west and north sides of Tian Sha, keeping it mostly separated from the Inner Sea region and Kazmaroon. The chain is home to not one, but many famous peaks, and its remorseless weather is the stuff you would expect from legends. There are also various temples manned by monks and oracles, devoted to many different deities, as well as legends of cities ruled by vampires, and passages to the nightmare realm of Lang. There are only two known safe passages through the mountains: the previously mentioned Altan Zold, and the break the city of Goka is built into. Over the years, there have been many attempts to settle in the crown of the world, leaving various ruins behind. First we have Mantaran, once a penal colony built by Mandavian crusaders, now a demonic stronghold in the north. The fated Hall of Lorngren was once used to overlook a dwarven necropolis, now inhabited by giants. Deadman's Dome is the remains of a watchpost to keep the path of Ogdenhay safe, now burned to the ground but still protected by its last guards. And of course we have the Nameless Spire, a tower built on the North Pole for no known reason, continuously creating its mysterious blue sludge. But what of successful nations? That's right. There are areas which are considered nations of their own, even in the lost deep in the glacier. First, in the Rhymehurst Mountains, where the path of Ogdenhay starts, is the giant settlement of Oljok. To the west of that, on the Gulf of Salvanmoran, is Almolt, small villages which are used as summer base camps for orphan fishers and whalers. Another large settlement is Hassanaliat, home of sedentary Eroketi, along the path of Ogdenhay. Zavatengura is within the same peaks, and is heavily settled by dwarfs for mining. The Osman Confederation is also along the path, but on the other side, the Tian side, along Lake Boreum. Finally is Umizal, a nation of blubber and ivory hunters, who give the Ivory Sea its name. And that brings us to the end of today's video. Just want to say both our trips up north in Adventure Paths have been pleasures. It is good to hang out on Nether Continent, which is why we are all excited for Tian Sha next year. However, this year we still have some business to take care of a little further south. And all things considered, it's gonna be a shorter video next week. So come back next week when we trade the tundra for the desert. See you then.